Hello, everybody. It's George from Ireland. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. There is some joyous news out of the United Kingdom. Now, he thinks this might only be pertaining to South Britain. Anyway, His Majesty's government has announced they're going to cut some of the personal independence payment. A lot of people are registered disabled in the United Kingdom, hugely more in the 60s than in the 60s in both real and absolute, relative and absolute terms. Now, some people are genuinely disabled, but being disabled doesn't have to stop you working. There are blind people who have full-time jobs, and deaf people, people with only one arm, people who are permanently wheelchair bound, one of my friends, people who are mentally ill, and besides, they're diagnosing more and more and more people are mentally ill. Wes Streeting, the health secretary, has even said that mental illness is overdiagnosed. Now, how would he know? He's not a psychiatrist, nor am I, or a doctor of any kind. It does seem to stand to reason to me. Now, surely these are clinical judgments to be made, and all right, but he has to take the expert advice, and he's making a political judgment, really. And as a psychiatrist friend of mine says that there's an element of subjectivity to it. I mean, most medicine's not an exact science, and particularly true with the psychiatry. Whereas if he or she describes the symptoms, displays the symptoms, are these for real? And to where as human, doctors get it wrong occasionally, which is why I ask for a second opinion on things. But disabled people are absolutely capable of working. Not in every case. There are people who are so severely disabled or so severely ill that they can't. I remember we mostly do sedentary jobs, and therefore physical disability is far less likely to render you unable to work than it was in previous generations. Remember, heretofore, people mostly worked as farmers, as factory workers, miners, in shipyards, cleaners, physical jobs. And now we're mostly mentally working, just working on the laptop, something like that. Work from home, work in bed, doing call center work or whatever. So it's preposterous that so many people should be registered unable to work. He started under Maggie Thatcher in the 1980s to hide mass unemployment. It was less embarrassing for the Conservative government at the time to have people registered disabled. In some countries, some towns of the United Kingdom, a huge number of people are on the sick. There's one town where 30% of young people are NEETs, not an education, employment, or training. So it's just appalling, and it's a heavier burden on taxpayers. And every penny you spend on that is a penny not spending on defence, on healthcare, on keeping the national debt down, on transition to green energy, and so on. So I actually applaud the Labour government for what they're doing. It's the only policy so far that I think is truly tremendous. So Liz Kendall announced this all in the House of Commons. Liz Kendall, a MILF, by the way, and what a pair of pins she's got too. She's the Work and Pensions Secretary, and she went to school in Watford with Jerry Halliwell, the ginger spice. So she wants a more pro-work system to make people take jobs. So I think that's really good. So they're going to freeze them the payments. They're going to halve them for new applicants. So get off your ass and work. Depression. Well, guess what? Slobbing around the house makes you feel rather dispirited. People below the age of 22 will not be able to claim the universal credit top up for their health payments. So you're going to have to tighten your belt, go down to 2 meals a day. Most adults wish you do only 2 meals a day. I know I'm the worst offender. Share a bedroom with another adult, two other adults, three adults, four adults. I don't care. That's your problem. Okay, so my benefits are to save you from death. That's it. If it's uncomfortable, good. I don't want them to be comfortable. I want people to strive to get off benefits. That's it. It's like no excuse for crime. That you should never be able to buy an unnecessary piece of clothing if you're on benefits. You should never be able to take an unnecessary journey by bus or train or anything like that. There should be no treats. It's to keep you alive, because generosity to these people is being ungenerous to those of us who've got to fork out for them. So anyway, His Majesty's government says it's going to save something like £5 billion a year, and say making it sustainable. And Liz Kendall was quite correct; it was unsustainable. So before the pandemic, disability benefits were £65 billion a year itself, shocking, and it was due to rise to £100 billion a year by 2029. So a lot of work has gone into this. So and it's also trying to make sure Labour keep their fiscal rules. Now, the usual suspect leftist MPs are so compassionate and obviously so cruel to taxpayers like me. So-called charities will give your own money, that the personal independence payments are being frozen. Anyway, so it doesn't apply to North Britain, but it applies to the rest of the United Kingdom. So personal independent payments are £72.65 per week minimum. They can go up. There could be a mobility component to this. So anyway, the cuts are going to affect at least 800,000 people, maybe up to 1.2 million people. So there are going to be new assessments to see if people are really capable of working and so on. The thing is, these assessments, they take time. They're very complicated, and as Liz Kendall said, it's not as simple as saying either you can work, you can't work. Often you can do certain kinds of work, and so forth. So I'm very glad that she's done this, and they've stolen a march on the Conservatives. Obviously, why did the Conservatives not do this? The kind of thing that if the Conservatives did, Labour would be up in arms saying, "Oh, you're so cruel, you're Mr. Scrooge, you're going to starve these people to death, and they can't cope, and blah blah blah." And so we haven't built resilience. We've encouraged people to be crybabies and wimps. I can't cope. I'm too pathetic. Someone's got to save me. And I know people who genuinely are disabled. I come from the top, the whole school of thought, as in go out and get a job. You will work, you will starve, and that's it. And it's binary, and there are no two ways around it. And no, the world does not owe you a living. Okay, I've been unemployed loads of times, like 20 times, been self-employed for years. So you're going to have to be a striver, and people only pay me if they're satisfied with me. I have to earn their business every single time. It'd be good to introduce some of that discipline in the public sector. No, the other taxpayers are not obliged to support you. You've got to support yourself. And so we've just inculcated in this people in this culture of lethargy, of dependency, of entitlement, and so on. And it's at the top of society as well. You look at the royal family and so forth. Um, Anyway, so it's absolutely the right thing to try. So the Disability Benefits Consortium have talked about this, and obviously they've got a vested interest in this in the usual way, saying it's immoral. Yeah, right. Pull the other one. Devastating benefits cuts. I'm glad there's good swinging benefits cuts, pushing disabled people into poverty. Well, I mean, I'm not sure. There's almost no real poverty. Worsen people's health. Well, then get working. Exercise will be good for your health. Eat less. That'll be good for your health. So the Scottish National Party has denounced it, even though it's not going to affect Caledonia. So anyway, Debbie Abrahams, one of the extreme leftists, has spoken out about this, saying on the back of sick and disabled people, but when disabled people can work in many cases. So the Conservatives have said it hasn't gone far enough, and so on. And the Liberal Democrats have obviously criticised it without offering any sort of alternative. Diane Abbott is, again, to surprise, a multi-millionairess who never puts her hand in her own pocket to help the poor. So, as an Irishman, I particularly hate her for being a cheerleader for terrorism in Ireland, sectarian murders, the murders of police officers in Northern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, kidnapping, torture, all sorts of every abominable, racist, sectarian crime that she's spoken up for. Now, I'm not saying she has an income of over £1 million, but she got assets of over £1 million, and then grandstanding about that she cares so much for these people, but never actually helped them. She's just vile, a national treasure. She is not. So, bravo, Liz Kendall, and I really hope they follow through with it. It will cause some discomfort for Starmer on the Labour backbenches, but it'd be hard for the Conservatives to outdo them. They've outflanked the Conservatives. It'd be difficult to be more right wing on this issue. Thank you so much on my channel. Make sure to subscribe on Patreon, donate to PayPal, georgecallahan79@gmail.com. Goodbye.